Spare Element, Episode 24, recorded 29 May 2013.
Are you channeling someone in particular?
What are you referring to?
His grandmother.
I have no idea what you...
I thought we were starting.
Welcome to episode 24.
Woohoo!
Ooh.
24.
Yes, 24, 25 soon. We should be able to rent a car at a lower rate.
This is not Vito, it's Clay.
And this is Vito. And tonight we're missing
Tim.
3 elements.
Wolfie. We had Ron here for a few minutes, and then he was on call, and he got called. He got out of the call, and then they called back, and he was called again. So he's
yes, the life of a doctor. But I suppose it's all right just to go save a life.
Yeah. Save
Whatever.
A life. So we're running lean and mean. Speaking of which, our guest tonight is Dave McKew. How you doing, Dave?
I'm awesome. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Good to see you. Good to be here.
But we are loaded with topics, and we're going to have a great time.
So, Dave, you done a lot in the last couple of years.
My current claim to fame in our little community here in San Francisco would be that between March of 2011 and March of 2012, made some big lifestyle changes, and I lost 112.5 pounds in 12 months.
Yeah, you know, when I met you, I knew you were in the process of losing weight, but then when you sent me information on yourself and I went to the links, so you actually used this company helped you. Tell me, I really want to find out about that.
Absolutely, and I think everybody locally should know about this. This is a local contest that I have tried to promote with these guys every year because I want, everyone to be aware of what's going on. There's a local gym here called Diacati Body, or I think they just go by Diacati these days, and it's a personal training gym down south of Market. And together with a local nutritionist, their business is called MV Nutrition. They sponsor one San Francisco resident per year and give that person $25,000 in services. For my year, I had a personal trainer 3 times a week for a year and nutrition counseling twice a month for a year. They have this contest. You submit a video, you talk about yourself and why you're deserving of this, and you go do some interviews. And they chose me, and in return, all I needed to do in return was work really hard, blog for them. I did a commercial for MV Nutrition and a few appearances here and there and some interviews for the press. It was a transformative experience. I learned so much. I had a really good time. Really turned my life around.
Every time I turned around on Facebook, you're saying, I lost this amount of weight. I lost this amount of weight.
Yeah, it was like I was, actually when I went through the process, I didn't even have a scale at home. I would only weigh in at my nutritionist's office. Now, I was allowed to have a scale at home. I just didn't have a scale that would weigh me. I was that heavy. At my heaviest, at my very heaviest, I was over 400 pounds for 5 years. And so I would do this weigh-in every Friday. It felt like Biggest Loser in a way. I do this weigh-in every Friday at my nutritionist's office. Then I get online and say, I'm 73.5 pounds down. And then, next week, I'm 78.9 pounds down.
You mean the next commercial?
The number keeps climbing. Yeah, it's just, it was really quite an experience, and just across the board, my health improved, my energy level improved, my sex life improved, my perception in the bear community, I would say.
How did all this happen?
Oh gosh, I would say first of all, we're in a community here where we call ourselves a community. We call ourselves the bear community, right? But we're comprised of so many different types of men, and even people who are not men, right? And basically, there's big guys that like little guys, and little guys that like big guys, and all sorts of different likes and attractions. I can't speak for everybody, but I can say that when I was, substantially above 400 pounds, I, was not commanding as much attention as I am now. And that could be
Maybe
a function.
The chub chasers like you.
Well, there were some, and it wasn't like my life was a harrowing nightmare or anything like that. But it's this kind of thing where maybe about 50 pounds in, after I lost about 55 pounds, I started discovering that it was an entirely different group of people paying attention to me and turning their heads at me. And I didn't necessarily feel so different myself. It had only been 5 months or something. Maybe my clothes had gone down some sizes or whatever. But then one day you start noticing that people are taking interest, and you're like, is that guy looking at me? Like, is it? You know what I mean? And I got to say, even now, I'm probably almost 2 years into this, and I'm still surprised. Even just walking over here, this really cute guy in the Castro passed me and walking over here, and he like gave me this double smile and this wink, and then I turned around as I passed him, and I looked, and he was like smiling at me, and I'm like, that kind of stuff didn't happen before. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not as much. One thing that's really interesting, one of the interesting side effects of all this weight loss is a substantial increase in sex drive. I had, I had maybe had some limitations or some sex drive issues that went away pretty quickly, and I was a little surprised. Like I had thought, oh, this is just getting older, but apparently it was a matter of weight. That's exciting to kind of reinvigorate and realize, oh wow, I literally was telling people I felt like I was like 38 going on 28 or whatever. Like I felt like, that the clock had been set back 10 years.
So you're saying your morning wood came back?
I would say that was never really a problem in particular, but I would say you're on the right ballpark there. I mean, it's just substantially livelier.
Now, so these nutrition guys, because I understand the coaching.
Yeah.
Because when I was in college, I did Jenny Craig, this is Vito, and I lost 100 pounds. And I attributed to the coaching.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Well, I've gained it back twice.
Sure,
Thank
it
you.
happens.
I attribute to exercising a half an hour every day and having low caloric intake because of the Jenny Craig food.
Yes.
And the coaching.
Yes.
So is that basically what happened with you too?
Sure. So first of all, one thing I think is really interesting that a lot of people do not realize, and you know this because you can go around and ask everyone you know who works out. People don't realize that weight loss is really, when you get down to it, it's about 80% nutrition and 20% exercise. All the people that we know, they go to the gym all the time, and then they go and they eat crap and they get their Starbucks and all that, and they don't realize that they're really just going nowhere, and then they complain that they're not losing weight. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to do one or the other, you're so much better off doing portion control and eating right than you are exercising. I mean, you could actually not exercise and lose weight if you eat less and eat right. So, I mean, for me, I would say the biggest thing was portion control, learning how to eat less. One of the early things I learned in the first few weeks was you can actually eat quite a bit of food if it's the right food. You know what I mean? And,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. So I was so afraid I'd be hungry. And I guess there were some times that I was hungry, but then when I actually sat down, there's a website I use, this MV Nutrition. The plan that they created is called Eating Free, and it's a national thing now. They have a book, and it's amazing. And eatingfree.com, you can log in and join for free. So it's just like a weight loss plan. That if I had a day that I was hungry, I could usually look at my numbers and say, you know what, I didn't probably hit enough protein today, or didn't have enough carb today, or whatever. So it was almost always my own fault if I were hungry. But I was shocked. You can eat a lot of food and not be hungry, and if you're eating the right foods and still lose weight. Exercise was obviously very important. I actually got substantially more active the more weight I lost. So now I'm not really a runner or a swimmer or a biker, but now I do a lot more walking than I used to be able to do. And of course, the more you lose, the more active you get, and the more active you feel. But I attribute it mostly to more than anything is learning how to eat, relearning how to eat, and relearning how to eat less. One thing that amazes a lot of people about my story is I'm a bachelor. I live alone. I have a small kitchen. I don't like cooking, for one. These guys at MV really were encouraging me to cook on my own. I did not. I ate out almost all of my lunches and dinners for a year. I ate out and still lost the weight, because once you've learned, how to eyeball 3 ounces of fish or 4 ounces of chicken or whatever, you can actually go out and just make smarter choices when you order. I had to give up carbs. I never gave up pizza. I gave up things like I didn't eat as much Chinese food and not as much Indian food, but I would say I was still eating pizza, and I was still eating foods that I loved. It's just in moderation and in balance. It's, in a way, it was simple. Once you get the hang of it, it just takes care of itself.
It sounds very familiar to me when the second time that I lost 100 pounds was on Weight Watchers. That sounds very similar to that.
Yeah. I think Weight Watchers, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they have the same, one of the things that I was doing every day in my daily targets was the breakdown for Eating Free is 45% carbs. I want to get this right. 45% carbs, 30% protein, 25% fats. And I think that the point system with Weight Watchers doesn't necessarily emphasize the particular food groups like that, does it? I mean, isn't it more like eat so many points in a day and you can... I'm not sure. I haven't done Weight Watchers, but...
Yes and no.
Yeah.
They're prepackaged meals or that.
I see.
No, that's part of the coaching and part of the classes.
Yeah.
When you sit down and do the class
think
and the
part of
weigh-ins, they talk about that stuff.
And I think the point calculation also to do with is it fiber or fat grams or something?
Yeah, fats, but it doesn't have to do with the amount of. Well, it does have to do with the amount of protein in it, but it doesn't have to. The points, those points,
but you get
that are on the frozen food, don't necessarily equate to how
protein
much
or carbs or whatever. Yeah, okay.
Well,
you get more
but
bang.
it kind of does. Never
You
mind.
get more bang for your buck. You get more quantity of food with a lower points if you're eating vegetables,
Sure.
for example. And so you are, when you start divvying up your points for the day, you're like, oh, okay, well, if I chow down on salad or, beets or,
Sure.
something like this, I can get fuller faster and not spend a lot of points doing it.
Absolutely. I think the
it's
key
more the
thing is to
coaching part.
retrain yourself to eat, which is, it's like we're bears. We all say we know how to eat, right? We've been eating our whole lives. That's how we got to be so big. But then, the fact of the matter is you need to learn to change the way you eat and not think of it as a diet, that this is something I'm going to do for a while and I'm going to return to my habits. It's a lifestyle change.
Absolutely.
How many times have we heard that in our life? How many times did I hear that and ignore it for 15 years during my obesity, thinking, oh, yeah, I'll just get this figured out later. I'll do this later. I understand. Lifestyle change. I get it. Well, then you don't really get it until you do it. Then when you do it, you need to learn it, so.
Well, then there's me that, I gained the weight back.
Your story's
I'm
not
following.
uncommon. Exactly.
I have the knowledge, though. I know this has a lot of points, this has a lot of points, this has a lot of points, but I eat it anyway.
or there are the people when I was in Weight Watchers at work who would say, they're like, well, I only did so many points this week. And it's like, well, that's just what you're counting. And they're binging, on the back end,
Sure,
eating
exactly.
all kinds of crap. And
Right.
it's like, okay, woman, we work with you. We see the candy bars at your desk.
Sure, exactly.
We see you in the break room,
Sure.
attacking the vending machines. So I know you're lying to yourself, but now you're coming in here and lying to us. And
And that's why accountability was so important for me, because I went into this nutritionist every 2 weeks, and I would sit down with her, and I would tell her, I was a little bit of a basket case. She was amazing. Her name's Sarah. But I would be in there, and I'd be like, oh, my God, I went to this party, and I, ate too much, and, I was just flipping out, and blah, blah, blah. And, and then, she'll help me come up with a plan. She'll say, next time you go, you have that Easter party next week. When you go there, you're going to have a properly balanced lunch before you go, so you're not grazing at the party. Come up with a strategy. Yep. It's not even so important what the strategy is. It's almost like having an eating plan. How to deal with this difficult situation, whether it's like a work meal or some party or something. It's like go in there with a plan and just set the goal. You can go drinking this weekend, but set the plan. You're going to have 2 drinks, and in between them, you're going to have water or whatever. And
Yeah, the coaching. I think it's the coaching that did it.
Accountability.
I think anything that all these diets work, but if you've got somebody to sit down with and talk to.
But
I
that
think
somebody
it
could be your partner or can be a friend. What I mean? I know so many people have had success with weight loss just by doing it with their friends, and they have little weigh-ins at their house, or they have their own little Weight Watchers club at their, they put money in it. They say $50 to the person who loses the most weight in 2 months.
Yeah. Well, the thing is past a certain age, then, you have to be on blood pressure medication.
Sure.
So we talked about that before. So I like being a big guy, but I don't like taking blood pressure medication.
Well, I got to say, when I was at my biggest, I would see some of these really, really big people on scooters and stuff, and I would say to myself, well, I'm not that person, but how close am I? I'm 38 right now, but when I'm 45 or 50, am I going to be that person? At the rate that I'm growing, you know what I'm saying? I mean, no, I mean, seriously, at the rate that, when am I going to become 500 pounds? When do I hit 500 pounds?
Wow.
When do I hit 600 pounds? It happens,
There's
right?
no control.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
like, you know what I mean?
control.
My wake-up call for me was I was on a Southwest Airlines flight in 2010, flying home to see my parents in Nashville who had lost their home in a flood, and I was going there to dig out their lives out of this house. And I'm on this plane, and on layover in Los Angeles, they come up to me, and they were like, are you aware of our customer size policy? And, of course, I lied and said no. And they were like, well, just so you know, we could throw you off this plane right now, but we're not going to because you're on layover in Los Angeles. They served this policy to me in front of everybody. Every passenger for 3 rows in front of back is staring at me. And they're like, that man that just sat down next to you and left, he had to be reseated. He's on another flight now because, you're so big. And I was just like, oh, my fucking God. You know what I mean? I was one of my favorite hobbies is travel, and it's suddenly jeopardized by this. I started researching all the airlines and trying to find the ones that didn't have this policy. Almost all of them do. You start looking, even now, it started in America, but now even international airlines are doing it. I mean, it's sort of it's terrifying.
You mean because you were gushing into the other seat?
Apparently I was. I don't think so. Actually, I even showed the stewardess this, or flight attendant, excuse me. I even showed her, I actually sit with great discomfort, holding my body in when I'm on a flight. I mean, I did. I don't worry about it now. Now when I get on a plane, it's hysterical. I sit down, I'm like, oh my God, these seats are so big. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? Look at this room, and everyone's just the first time I got on a plane after I lost weight, it was amazing. And there's skinny people complaining about, I'm still a big guy, but there's skinny people complaining about the seats. And I'm like, these are amazing.
Well,
I love this.
I'm always pontificating about JetBlue. JetBlue is the best. I don't have to have a seatbelt extender. It's just free snacks.
Have you been denied exit row seating because you need a belt extender on any flight? This happened to me too.
Yeah. That's why when I was traveling a lot for work, I actually would put the seatbelt extender on and not let the stewardess see me do it.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you something. So the first time that happened to me, I was in an exit row, and they wanted to reseat me. They said, "You'll be more comfortable." I'm like, "No, I'm good here." And they're like, "No, you'll be more comfortable." So then they were like, "Well, it turns out our policy is if you have a belt extender on, you can't sit in the exit row." And I said, "Is that because if the plane crashes, my body will be too hard to move? Or is that because fat people can't be heroes?" And they were just like, and they just looked at me like, they didn't have an answer. And I went inside the airport on my next layover, and I asked again, and no one had an answer there. On my second leg, I asked the third person, and that person said, "No, because the belt extender becomes a tripping hazard in an emergency." And I'm just like, I think it's my 400-pound body that's the tripping hazard.
But no, I did know about that policy. Yeah. So I would hide it. I stole one.
You're a smarter man than me.
I have a little travel bag, and I stole.
You're awesome.
Stole it.
We even back before the airline started downsizing their seats, I went on spring break with a friend of mine, and he was a big guy too. And one of his friends came with us, and she was insistent that we had to make sure that she wore her skinny pants. She couldn't wear jeans, because if she wore jeans, then she wouldn't fit in the seat. She had to wear like thin pants, because otherwise she would, her ass wouldn't fit in the seat.
Ooh, big girl.
Right. And it was so interesting because, I'm not blind. I know that she's not skinny, but I was like, really? The size of the fabric's going to make a difference whether you fit in the seat or not?
Sure.
Baby got back.
At what point do you have that wake-up call?
Sure.
Yeah. So, and for her, it was just something to negotiate. It wasn't a wake-up call. She wasn't about to stop eating.
I didn't have a wake-up call. I just started getting creative and figured out how to get all my points so I could get on status so I could get the bigger seats.
Well, I got to say, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but this was the first thought in my head when I heard about this contest, which is called Commit to Fit, sponsored by Diacati and MV Nutrition. When I heard that my weight loss could be a show, when I could be doing it publicly and I could be blogging about it, I suddenly was much more excited about the idea of losing weight, and that's why I jumped on this. And I even mentioned that in my audition video, which I've never shown to anybody, like a handful of friends. But I was like, I'm a really outgoing guy, and I would love to do this in front of an audience. So, you know what I mean? And so I got to say, for me, the accountability part was important, but I really liked the opportunity to kind of do it publicly and on Facebook and have everyone get involved, and it was just so much fun.
Well, what else do you do publicly?
So I have a long history doing sketch comedy here in San Francisco. I haven't done a show in a while, but I did for about 10 years, part of a sketch comedy group called Uphill Both Ways, who you may not have heard of, and you may not have heard of in a while. But we did a lot of, our home venue was the Darkroom Theater in the Mission. I don't know if you guys know the Darkroom, but they are a small theater across from Taqueria Cancun and my Mission and 19th. They are most famous for stealing, or should I say borrowing, movie scripts and turning them into stage shows. I actually did Mrs. Peacock and Clue there, and I played Darth Vader and Chewbacca in a Lucasfilm authorized version of Star Wars, and I also performed as the mother and Pontius Pilate in Life of Brian on stage there. But in my sketch comedy years, that was my home venue, and in addition to I did festivals all over the U.S. and Canada, New York, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, Vancouver, Toronto, and that was an amazing ride. I loved it. I got scouted by HBO a few times. They never did anything with us, but they checked us out. And
Cool.
Comedy Central bought one of our short films, and we had some pretty good success with it. And my creative partner now, Colin Benoit, awesome guy. We're talking about getting back into it. We took a little break. He was kind of busy with his career, and I kind of got busy with weight loss. And we've taken a break, but we're talking about doing another show either late this year or maybe early next year. So I'm looking forward to getting back on stage. But I will say one thing about weight loss that shocked me. I actually think that my desire to get on stage and be ridiculous has been reduced by the fact that I'm getting attention in other areas that I didn't. I think it's possible during my years of obesity, I'm not kidding, that I may have been overcompensating, calling a lot of attention to myself because I felt like I needed it, and I feel like maybe it's less important to me now. But we'll see. I want to do a one-man show about weight loss. I do feel like I need to be a little skinnier before I can do that show, which is why that project's kind of perpetually been stalled. But I think I have a lot of stories to tell, and I think I want to do it through a bunch of characters and storytelling, and I think that's going to be my next big project.
Oh yeah, the one-man shows where you... do different things.
Exactly, like a whole bunch of characters.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
wow, that'd be great.
Yeah.
hopefully you can toss some links Vito's way, and we'll put them up on the website.
Sure, absolutely.
For all that kind
Sure.
of stuff too. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's
awesome.
one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because you just every time I've met you, you make me laugh.
Oh, Vito, I adore you. You're a sweetheart. What a sweetheart.
So, Dave, were you ever a Boy Scout?
I was not. No.
I am. I'm an Eagle Scout.
Ooh, Eagle Scout.
Yeah, and I for many, many years, I've chickened out, but I thought about giving my, Eagle Scout back, writing that letter and sending it back, because they didn't like the gays.
And so now boys can be gay,
But leaders can't.
but leaders can't. So what kind of message does that send? I mean,
Well,
it's progress.
Calms me down a little bit, and other Eagle Scouts, I'm sure. But I'm not sure what you do if you've already turned yours in. I don't know how that works.
It's going to have to be a massive nationwide program to give them back. Right.
It's got to be.
Right.
But I'm happy about it. I think it's actually more important to have the leaders be out than the kids, because the kids really don't. I mean, I didn't come out till I was 30.
Right. Yeah.
But this day and age, kids are coming out earlier. But
they are.
I don't know if I see the relevance of that more.
Well, it's more of an issue for the Eagle Scouts because they're older. A lot of these kids, when they get to the point where they're becoming an Eagle Scout, they're in their mid to late teens, and it's a relevant issue at that time.
Oh, okay.
But I'm a firm believer that the more role models we get, positive role models, the better.
Yeah, that's why I think it's more important for it to have it be okay that leaders are gay, absolutely, than the kids.
So here's my plan. A friend of mine down in Salinas, she runs her son's little Cub Scout group. So she can't be gay, and her husband can't be gay and be leaders in the Cub Scout thing, but they could bring me in and introduce me. This is our friend Clay. He's gay. I mean, have the leaders of the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts that are straight be advocates, be straight allies for the gays. The straight Cub Scout leaders will introduce their Cub Scout groups to gay people.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
I'm sorry it took me a minute.
Well, that's okay. But, so here's, hey, we're going to learn about botany. We're going to go to the garden, and, this is Rick, and he's a botanist, and he's going to show you all about, plants and everything like that. And Rick, tell us a little bit about yourself. And, I've been doing this for 14 years, and my husband, Carl, he sometimes comes down to help me on the weekends, but he's a rocket scientist. He works down, blah, blah, blah.
So expose the children.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, I get it. It works for me.
That's my plan.
That's a really good plan. I like that idea a lot. Yeah.
Well, it totally works, because that's one of the reasons I didn't come out. I thought I had to be a flamboyant guy and
Rodney Allen Rippey.
Sure, I went through that too.
Charles Nelson Riley.
Girl.
I actually came out in university in a very liberal environment, and I actually was afraid to come out initially because it seemed like everyone was an activist, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be an activist. Like, I feel like I'm not political enough to be gay.
Oh, well,
you know what I mean?
Have to do that.
Yeah, kind of. Like, that's what I felt like. Visible gay people were all activists.
It's just like a lot of young people when they first come out, they feel like they have to be Queenie.
Yeah.
Because that's all they know about being gay. And this may just be my old school, 52-year-old self back in my day when kids came out, they got all Queenie. So maybe,
I agree, though.
Maybe all the little Queenie twinks running around the castle are just that way. Who knows? And, things are things come in phases. I know it's a stereotype that being gay is a phase, but I think a lot of us have seen a lot of our gay brethren.
It's just a phase. You just haven't found the right woman yet, Clay.
I got to say, I'm liking this long phase. It's been about 20 years for me. I think it's pretty cool.
It's just a short phase you're going through.
One of my buddy Hall from the kids in the Kids in the Hall. Oh, it's a phase, a very long phase.
What's Dad doing? Oh, he's upstairs masturbating to gay porn.
I'm not gay. Well, I think it cracked me up how quickly people jumped on the bandwagon of bitching about this not being enough. I think it's a monumentous occasion. It's a huge step forward. They're accepting gay scouts. Yay! It's a good thing. My partner and I talk a lot about being in the moment. It's like, yes, there's a lot that needs to be done, but can we just for a freaking second appreciate what's happened?
Yeah,
Better than it was before.
I get it.
So
I get it. I want it all. I want marriage now. I want everybody. But
calm the fuck down, Vito.
Yeah. It's like
we have an explicit tag. You can say fuck, cunt, bitch,
Really? I don't have to go.
Twat.
Fuck boop like
No.
that. You know?
No.
You. Anyway, so I totally get what you're saying, Clay, that yes, I think it's a great step forward. And it may be an effort to make that step forward,
Well,
little baby steps.
And I think the Boy Scouts themselves will be like, wait a minute. Kids are a lot more progressive than any of the adults running around.
Oh, big time.
So-
Big time.
Oh, cool. Well, congratulations, Boy Scouts of America. And that brings us to our break point. So we'll
As for iTunes, hold on. And after the break, we'll be right back
enjoy the music.
for part 2. I don't even think we said part 1 beginning of this one.
We don't have Wolf here.
I
We're
know.
lost.
We're lost.
Oh, my God.
Um,
I'll record those.
but for bearradio.net, we will see you next week. And what? Clay, no throw up. No, don't.
Here's my
Don't
vomit.
do it.
This is professional
The
vomit sound.
listeners are going
Ready for
to
this?
start doing it.
Oh, that's a good
Guys,
one.
don't do that.
If Scarlett is here, she'd be like, can I lick it up? Can I lick it
Oh,
up?
that's so gross.
Welcome
Great way
back.
to start back part 2 of episode 24.
24. This is Clay.
This is Vito.
And
And I'm
guest,
Dave McKew.
That's our guest, Dave McKew. Hi, Dave.
He's
Hey.
got 2 names like Ron Brown.
All I can say about it, and for those of you on bearradio.net, if you listen to the last half hour, is that your experience would probably be very different if you had done your contest in San Diego. Because out of that $25,000, I'm willing to bet about 17,000 of it would have just been coffee enemas in Tijuana. I'm just saying.
Oh, wow.
Ew.
Thanks,
But I'd be
Clay.
so clean.
Ay.
And by the way, Ron is on assignment. No, Ron is being a doctor, and Wolfie's out, and Tim is out. And the reason Tim is out is because
He's working hard.
he's working
for the
hard.
money.
But
Bum,
guess
bum,
what happens
bum,
this
bum.
Sunday?
He leaves on the AIDS ride.
It's for the AIDS ride. So
And
Wow.
he just got to his $5,000 goal. So
I
he's
know
very
it's
happy.
amazing. So
So,
since we talked about that again, I'll put another link on, and maybe
yay. It's not too
you
late
can
to
get more
donate.
money. Yeah. Well, what am I don't know when this is coming out, but we'll.
There's a few more days right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. And then 20 milliseconds after it ends, they'll start raising money for next year. So
Exactly.
it's not too late to donate.
All right.
Oh, you're going to edit that out, right, Vito?
No, actually, why not? Let's get him started for next year.
Ba-bum. Well, that's cool. Well, so our next topic is, what are the social obligations when you run into an ex and or a one-night stand?
You mean like at the next day at the grocery store, or
Or
a
years
week,
later?
or
Years later.
Oh, okay.
So this all came up earlier in April. Bill and I took a little road trip. And we were both in between jobs. I'd actually started a new job, and he was ending a job. And so we took a week off. And I said, where do you want to go, honey? He's like, the Grand Canyon. So we drive to the motherfucking Grand Canyon. In our Hertz rental that started falling apart bit by bit. All the air conditioning stopped, and then the undercarriage fell out, and we actually, when the undercarriage fell out and was scraping on the road and sparks were flying in the middle of the night, we thought, all right, we're done with this rental car. We're going to exchange it. So we went to Ontario and got a hotel, and we're right there by the airport. And then woke up the next morning and realized we'd have to take all this stuff out of the car, put it in the other one at the Ontario airport. Fuck it. We had the undercarriage of the car tied up with the shoestring. We're going home. It's fine, right? So we leave and we find there's a Starbucks. And so we go around the corner to the Starbucks, Ontario, California, go in, get our Starbucks. We're sitting outside. Had a nice, relaxing morning. We're all refreshed after all the drama the night before. And then we're getting ready to leave, and I go inside to go to the bathroom, and I see kind of this cute guy out of the corner of my eye on the way in. And so, of course, I'm going to scope him out on the way back from the bathroom, and I look, and I was like, and the guy's kind of looking at his computer, rocking back and forth. And I'm like, oh, my God, that looks like my ex that used to rock when he was doing his computer. And I was like, oh, my God, that is my ex. I was like, what the fuck? He lives in Sacramento. What's he doing in Ontario, California?
That's weird.
Right? So, of course, I walk over and say hi. And he was actually on his way to Palm Springs.
Wow.
And then, so, of course, I go outside. I tell my new partner that my ex is out there. He's like, well, I'm going in to meet him. So actually, I jump up and introduce him, and then I go back out because we had the dog with us, and it was just one of those things. It was like,
Did he know Scarlett?
Yeah, he had met Scarlett.
Okay.
So it was just like, how the fuck do you run into one of your exes in a Starbucks off I-10 outside of Ontario on a road trip?
Mm-hmm.
How the hell does that happen?
Well, I've introduced every time that I've run into an ex, like at a party or a bar or whatever. I've introduced my new boyfriend to them. I believe in having a good relationship with my exes. It didn't work out one time, but hey, sometimes that happens. But I'm doing my best.
And I guess the rest of the story on this one is this was sort of the unrequited love of my life at the time, and no fault. In hindsight, with enough distance, I recognize we just weren't meant to be together. But it was so painful. It was like, like you're perfect if only, and the if onlys will kill you. Someone's either perfect or they're not, and nobody's perfect.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
So it either works or it doesn't, and it's not about the blame game or yada yada yada. But so all my friends know about that guy. And of
what
course,
about any tricks? Have you ever had any tricks today that you've run into and had to be awkward?
Not really.
You know what happens to me quite a bit is now that I've lost all this weight, I bump into old tricks and they don't recognize me. And then they're like, "Oh my God, is that you, Dave?" And I'm like, "Yeah. No, I'm hot now. It's confusing." I say that's one of my jokes. I just say I think it's hysterical. And then we start talking about it. They're like, "Wow, you've lost a lot of weight." So my ex-boyfriend said to me when I saw him for the first time, "He's like, you've lost a lot of weight." And one ex a trick of mine from a few years ago said to me, he's like, "Are you sick? Have you been sick?" And I'm just like, no, no, I worked for this.
Yeah, I earned this.
I didn't have some bonus illness, no, but
It's terrible.
but it's kind of fun because it's a little bit of disguise going on,
Well, like me shaving off my facial hair, become invisible, or
Oh, yeah.
or all of a sudden you become visible, right?
I did that about 3 months ago, and that was even more shocking. People were just like, "You look so young. You should keep it off." And I'm like, I don't want to look young.
Especially my mother. You look 10 years younger.
That's what my mother says too. She hates my beard.
Yeah, all mothers do for some reason.
What's that? What's that all
What's
about?
up with that?
Yeah.
But no, I've run into people that I've had relations with before. I'm always cordial. I made a decision years ago that I would always be nice to people and I would acknowledge them. And some people have been uncomfortable with that, but that was their issue, not mine.
I have to retract my earlier thing about, I have run into a trick, and it was a little uncomfortable. A friend of mine took me to his company picnic and introduced me to his boss, and his boss's partner, and his boss's partner. I had totally had really nasty sex earlier, earlier in our lives, not recently. They weren't together at the time, but it was just sort of like, it was like, "Oh, well, hello," and I'm like replaying the video.
Yeah, in your brain.
Okay. And now you're happily married. Well, good for you.
Good for you. Times change.
You dirty pig.
No, there was a point in time, because I was quite busy after I first came out, where, the room, I knew a lot of people in the room, but times have changed, and I really don't have that anymore. So.
And you moved up here, and, you arrived, and you got labeled grandpa, and,
I still see that bartender. He works at the Lone Star. It's like,
yes.
call me grandpa. I'll cut you.
Well, and nowadays you're dating such younger men, it would only be awkward if you ran into them, like, at recess at their school or something like that, right?
Explicit tag. Fuck you, Clay.
Fuck you, Tim.
But, yeah, I could be my current boyfriend's father.
Vito's social not obligation, but his recommendation is be nice, and I think that's a good thing.
Make a personal decision on your own that you're going to, I'm not going to pretend I don't know this person.
Yeah. Well, and it's like also, exes or one night stands. Bill and I met on Bear 411, and I know there are people that, "Oh, you can't tell people that." I'm like, "Well, it's the truth. Why wouldn't, I'm not ashamed. I'm on Bear 411. I'm still there."
Well, how many stories have you heard about tricks that reunited and rekindles and become something? I mean, I know.
Or a trick that just goes on and on and on.
It's a straight couple story, but I know this woman who bumped into her senior prom date 20 years later, and they got married, and they hadn't seen each other in 20 years, and it was just like this one date that they had at the prom, and it was like whatever. And then they were like, "Oh, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Let's have dinner." And then he got married. And it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you need a 20-year gap or some gap between when your one night stand and when they become a relationship, I suppose.
Wow.
Well, and Bill and I talked about this. What I mentioned earlier. If I had met him back, he used to be part of the Harrison Street Fair, and back then he was going out to the bars all the time, and he smoked, and I wouldn't have dated him back then. And he's evolved and changed, and I've evolved and changed.
Absolutely.
And you might meet the perfect person for you, but you're not ready for them then. Like you said, the 20-year gap, 10-year gap, 5-year gap, who knows?
I'm a big believer in that you have to be in the same place. You have to be in the right place. And, that's usually one of the reasons that I broke up with people, because we were just in different places.
And I'd still fuck my ex, so, it's all good.
Well, there's always that. One of my exes, when I see him,
I may want to kill him, but I'd still fuck him.
And that's why the answer to this question is so conditional. Some people, the response is, hey, hey. And then some people, it's like if they're hot and you're still single and whatever, or you're available, you're like, hey,
They're like, then they're done that.
What are you doing in the seafood aisle? It's like, I'm buying fish. Oh, hey,
That's so hot.
That's hot. What? Salmon?
Well, and then the chances you're running into an ex depend on whether or not you still live in the same area, if you've moved. And some of us live in the city, all caps, and some of us live out of the city.
I feel a transition coming on.
Yes. So, and certainly, once you move out of the all cap city, who are you going to run into out there in the hinterlands? Tell us about that, Vito.
Well, we need to have Jeff do his.
It's time for this or that.
Okay.
It's Jeff. So I'll start. I live in the city, all caps. Ta-da.
And I used to live in the city, Dave.
I live in the city.
Well, I used to live in the Tenderloin. I never
Tender knob.
got off my
The
rear
popo.
end and lived in a nice part of town because I just had some carrots in front of me saying, you're going to move, you're going to move, you're going to move, and it didn't never happen. And then I met Tarek, and he lived way south in San Leandro in the East Bay, and I lived in the city and didn't like my place, and it was super small. So we decided, we went middle ground, and we moved to Emeryville. So I am no longer a city dweller, and all of a sudden Clay comes up with this saying that I didn't even know existed. The bridge and tunnel.
Oh, you've never heard that?
Yeah.
Well, until I moved to the East Bay, I didn't know.
It's actually co-opted from New York.
Yeah, absolutely. But it flies everywhere.
If you're not on Manhattan, your B&T, bridge and tunnel. And it can be very derogatory. I think it's hysterical because,
it's totally derogatory.
Yeah. No, but I think it's hysterical. B&T, bridge and tunnel.
But there's a mass movement, I understand. People moving from the city to, I don't know why, because of rent control, if they're able to keep their rent down, because the rents are just unbelievably crazy now.
I think it's like we were saying earlier about bumping into your old tricks. I think it's a stage of life thing and where you're at. And I think, like, for me right now, I live on the corner of Church and Market. Right now, it's important for me to have grocery stores and bars and restaurants and drug stores all within a block of my life because I want that activity there. But I've always conceded that there may be a chapter of my life where I want to go somewhere more mellow and have a little bit more space and have a yard and pay less rent. But I think, like many San Franciscos, I feel like I'm trapped in my apartment forever. I moved out. My boyfriend and I broke out 3.5 years ago, and in our separation, I got the king size bed, and I moved into the one studio I could find that fits the king size bed. And now that I love my location at Church and Market so much, I feel like I've always said people, I'm not, I don't like this apartment that much, but I'm not moving until I have a boyfriend to move in with because, at this point, what's better than this? I love this location.
Let's talk some dollars here.
Well, what am I paying?
Yeah.
I pay $13.25 for my studio, which I think, and this is what I signed for my lease 3.5 years ago, was a pretty good deal then. And I think now this place would probably go for 18 or 19. Some people think more. But I mean,
no. It would be your location. It would be probably $2,200.
Do you really think so for a studio?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
the average one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco is like over $3,000.
Well, this is a studio, but
including the Tender Knob and Excelsior and shitty places.
Sure, yeah, no, I've seen that
location.
map that's been going around. It's pretty crazy. I keep thinking like, who would pay $2,000 to live in my studio? But I got to say, the location is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I work downtown. I can take JKLMNTF to work.
You're in a great location.
So I don't know, but it's it's one of those things where I just feel like I can't. What's better than this?
Well, see, I thought where you were going, you're talking about the activity and
Yeah.
all the things around you. You thought you would concede at some point you might want a slower pace of life, and
Sure,
a quieter
but
place.
not now.
Well, it's hysterical. Is Bill and his friends, they have a tendency in common. They bought this place, and they literally bought the worst house on the street. in a great neighborhood, and it's like living in the country. I mean, literally, we're out in kind of upper Noe Valley on the hill going out of Noe Valley up over towards Glen Park, and yet we have the 35, the 24, and the J. And then if all that's going to shit going to downtown,
Sure.
we can take the J outbound out to Glen Park, BART station, or we could walk. It's less than a mile, and we have BART.
Sure.
So it's amazing. We live in the city, in the country.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be a rock quarry up Billy Goat Hill. Used to be a rock quarry, and you know,
And it's gorgeous up there, and the view you guys have is incredible, and it's in the city.
yeah, we're in the city,
You're in
and
the city.
and his mortgage and his taxes and everything are less than what most people are paying for rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. We were joking the other day. We're like, we should rent this out and go live in the Sunset because I don't mind gray, crappy weather.
Yeah.
I don't like it hot. So I'm like, I live in the Sunset. Shit.
I think what it comes down to
You
is
get a little bit more space because you guys don't have a lot of space.
Yeah, we less than have 700 square feet.
What
so.
it comes down to every time I talk to someone about this, it's either worth it to you to live here and pay it or not. You know what I mean? And like I used to live on Russian Hill. I used to ride the cable car to work, and I would get on right here. I would get on at Hiding Green. The tourists would see me, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're a local." Like they went, "Let's talk to the local," right? And this was every day I'm talking to tourists, and they'd be like, "You live there? What do you pay?" And I'm like, "I pay $11.50 to live in a shoebox." And they're like, "Well, I live in Maryland, and I pay $800 for a 4-bedroom house." I'm like, "But you have to live in Maryland."
Yeah.
Like, you know, I live where you go on vacation. Like, this is worth it to me. Like, you think I'm insane, but like, I think you're insane. And like, get off my cable car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to get to work.
Yeah.
Well, we live there's no other way to say it. We live in a luxury apartment, over 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, jacuzzi, pool table, gym. Totally amazing, totally run, fantastic, but it's 2,500. Just a few miles away in Oakland, we have friends that have a little 2-bedroom, kind of low ceiling, no amenities, and they're paying about 1,500.
Yeah.
So you do get what you pay for,
Oh,
but it's like our apartment in the city would be double probably what we're paying. It'd
At
be
least.
$4,000 to $5,000.
Oh, easily.
Isn't it hysterical that in the Bay Area we so are not hesitant to talk about our rent? Like, you know, I'll go to someone's house, like, "What do you pay?" And they just tell you, and it's like, you know, anywhere else in the country it'd be rude, but here it's like you have to tell people what you pay because it's like a story.
I want listeners to
We
know
need the data.
how crazy it is to
Open
live
the
here,
kimono. Let's see.
to live in the city. Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking the other day too. We went to the UC SF campus south of Market over there by the ballpark. We went to a function there, and I was thinking it's like all these new units that are down there, and it's all very modern and sleek. You might as well be in like Berlin or something. You know, it's really not a San Franciscan experience. It's all very, you know, glass and steel and, you know, and linear and, you know, all this. And I was like, there are people that have moved to the city and this is their San Francisco. And this doesn't have anything to do with my San Francisco. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with the Sunset San Francisco or Russian Hill or the Richmond.
Sure.
You know, there's all these
It's
different
flat,
San
too.
Franciscos. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
and now they're talking about adding another, you know, 280,000 people by 2040. There's a headline in one of the local rags about that, you know, all the growth that they're going to do. I mean, like Candlestick, as soon as they tear that down, that's all housing and all that.
Wow.
That's going to be a very different San Francisco, you know, than what we're used to. And
It's a very diverse city.
and it's going to be very but the diversity is going to go away as the costs go up and up and up. You know, all those people in Hunters Point and, you know, all that area, they're being displaced by all the you know the real high amenity, expensive construction.
They're going to be at a Russian banya that we went to. Archimedes banya.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's really interesting, I think. But I don't look down on anybody for not living in the city. It's a choice. I've lived over in the East Bay before. You know,
Well, it's so easy to commute because the base of the Bay Bridge is where I live, and it's easy to get to the city in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I'll admit there's people
So-
out in Oakland that can get to my office in downtown San Francisco faster than people in San Francisco can, you know, like sometimes, like, you know, depending on
Because
where
of
you
BART.
live. Yeah, because of BART or whatever.
Yeah.
But I still like to make fun of those people. I think it's important. Like, I like to say things like, I don't go south of 30th Street or whatever. Like, I don't go west of Divisadero, you know, and then East Bay, what? You know.
Well, you know, I thought about that when I moved to San Francisco. One of the reasons I moved to San Francisco was because, one, I said if I ever made enough money to live in the city, I would live in the city. It was kind of like a life goal. But I did it. I lived in the city. I'm
Exactly.
okay. You know,
you lived in the Popo.
been there, done that.
And I
Polk
expect
and
them
Post.
to laugh at me when I move to Oakland, like, just so we're clear. Like,
Oh,
I'm just paying it forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you were on Snapchat and someone tried to show you a naked picture for 7 seconds and they were from like the South Bay, would you even look at it?
I would say you're a coward. 7 seconds. Seriously. That is not enough time for me to process, let alone process.
You can tell where somebody lives just by the look of their penis? Is that what you're saying?
I can. Pacifica, next.
But on any app, I mean, Growler or Scruff, I mean, I always love it when people say they're in San Francisco and then in parentheses it'll say like Daly City.
Sure.
Or Pacifica or, it gets further and further away, San Mateo, East Palo Alto.
Sure. Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you can tell when they just put Bay Area. And then you're just like, where exactly do you live? And they're like, Livermore. You're just like, it's like, is that close enough to the water? Like, I don't even know. But
well, when you don't have a car and you live in the city, you don't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
Crazy things. Well, I think we all have used some of the little apps that are out and about, like Growler and Scruff.
Well, the newest one that I brought up was the Snapchat. I have some friends. I haven't seen or done anything lewd on it yet, but you can, and you can kind of maybe not be anonymous, but you can make sure, well, with some level of security that your picture that you took won't go crazy. You could do a snap real fast. You know how you press the home button and the power button, really, but you have to be like super fast to do it.
And we finally have that on the ice cream sandwich. Android people.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
We have that now.
Oh, you can take pictures of your screen?
Yeah, you can take snap pictures. That was a feat upgrade.
it just seems like to me that people are going to be able to do that. I mean, if I'm going to send a photo that I want deleted in 7 seconds, I'm not going to send it to someone's phone and have it get deleted or have it get screen captured. Like, I don't know. I think it's silly. I think it sounds like it's a thing that kids are using.
They do it for 2 seconds.
It sounds like a things that kids who are underage are using so that they can sext each other when they're 16 years old without their parents finding out, right?
This is my hoo-ha.
Yeah, exactly. Good for them if they're making money on it or whatever, but I don't see how it has any applications to those of us who are grown-ups, which would be all of us, maybe.
Oh, I think you'd be surprised.
Really? Have you used it?
Everyone except Vito's boyfriend. He's underage.
He is not underage.
Is he 20 yet?
5.
Oh, that's cool.
He's 5? That's disgusting.
25.
Oh, 25.
There's another app, too.
He's this many.
When I first got on the internet, there's another app, and the name of it is eluding me, but you can also do that. You take pictures for a brief second, and then you take a picture, and then some random person in the world gets it. Then if you can reply to that picture once, and if that person replies, you can go back and forth. But if you break the chain, that picture chain is gone.
Oh, weird.
And the reason I brought it up is because it's developed a secret code via pictures that if you take a picture of your feet, that means that the next picture is going to be a picture of your penis.
Wow. So complicated.
Yes. And why don't you guys talk about something, and I'll try to figure out what this is. But I'll put it on the website what the app is. It's like Swap.
I don't know. That reminds me of Margaret Cho's thing about there's a gay bar in Scotland called CC Blooms, and she's like, that's the gayest sounding thing she's ever heard of. It's a character from Beaches. Why don't they just call it Fuck Me in the Ass Bar and Grill? It's like, and if you take a picture of your feet, then you have to send a picture of your penis. But if you break the chain, it's over and you'll never meet that person again. Oh my God.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I need like a flow chart. I can't even follow it.
Right?
Like I need this elaborate diagram.
Who's got Vizio?
Blueprints. Yeah, exactly. Seriously.
Whereas you could just go on Growler
and send a picture of your penis.
Exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Or your feet if people are into that, which I'm discovering a lot of people are into that.
I'm sure they are. Yeah. Well, it's 12 and a half. Oh, yeah.
I've been asked my shoe size many times.
I've been asked my age, not my shoe size. But
I think it's called Swap, but I'm not finding it here when I'm looking.
Well, maybe you just made it up so that the podcast would be longer.
No. No. It's real. And
It's real.
It was one of the first apps I got when I got my
Wow, that's crazy.
iPhone.
I've never heard of that.
I'll put it on the
Link
the
to
website.
it.
A link to it.
Find a link to it. Well, I think the only app I have on my phone currently is Growler.
Growler.
And I have a link to Bear 411. So that's it. And I'm hardly ever on either one of them. So
I use Scruff and Growler all the time. I'm logged in all the time.
Where did Growler grew out of? What was the one that
Grinder.
And I was too fat for Grinder.
I heard someone summarize it once. They said Grinder is for boys, Scruff is for men, Growler's for bears.
Oh.
That was how someone summarized it when I was like, that's pretty good because I've had to
That's not
explain it.
bad.
I've had to explain it to straight people. Like I have all these straight friends, like coworkers. I have lunch every day with a bunch of these adorable Asian ladies I work with. So I'm like the bear representative at the table, and I have to always explain what I'm doing because I have my thing out at lunch, and I'm on my scruff, and I'm looking like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I said, I'm on one of my man apps. And they're like, what's a man app? And I'm like, oh boy. And then of course I got in the whole conversation with them about like bears and cubs and otters and all that. And I actually opened my growler, went through all the categories and was describing like silver daddy and all this stuff. And they're like, wow, this is complicated. I'm like, yeah, I need a flowchart. Where's the video?
Well, one of the things about online representation of oneself could be misrepresentation of oneself.
So much of that, don't you think? I just feel like there's always people who are hiding.
Well, I've heard it a lot, like, that somebody's using somebody's picture. And when I first started using the internet, that happened to me. The old
Someone
AOL
stole your
stuff.
picture?
No, I mean someone showed me.
Oh, okay.
That was happening. Like, oh wait, that's not this guy's picture. It should be. But I haven't really encountered much of that.
I mean, I guess if it's happened to me, I haven't encountered that thing. But what I have encountered are I'm having a conversation with someone. First of all, if someone has a profile and doesn't say they're single, I assume that they're not. And then I will often ask them, are you single? And then they're like, or what I actually do is I'll say like, oh, does your partner know you're on here? And like, how'd you know it's partner? And I'm like, because it doesn't say single. And, most people either admit that they're partnered or they will say, oh, they didn't realize they didn't have it and they add it. But I find people hiding their status that way. I find people hide their age, and they hide their age usually because they're either they think they're really old or they think they're really young. And then the other thing is people turn off the GPS, and so that way you don't know where they are, and they'll strike up a conversation, and you think you're chatting with someone who's local, and you learn like, oh no, I live in Chicago, and I'm just like, why have I been talking to you for an hour? Like I just I feel like I had to learn to ask like, where do you live? Because you're not. It doesn't indicate that you're a mile away or 2 miles away. But sometimes you just get sucked into the conversation. Next thing you know, you're like, "Are you seriously in West Palm Beach?" Like,
What gets me is when someone says, like, "How are you?" or these open-ended questions.
Sure.
I'm like, you want me to spend an hour with you?
Sure.
What is this?
Can't talk to everybody.
Well, and then sometimes the pictures are either really old pictures or that one picture that just captures them perfectly, in the way they like to be seen, but isn't necessarily reality.
Or far away.
I had
like really far away so you can't see their face.
What I can't stand are people with profile pictures where they have like sunglasses on. And you're just like, are you serious? Like, like I can't see you. Then they send you additional pictures, and they're wearing sunglasses on all of them, and I'm like, I can't even see, like, can I see your eyes? Like, if we ever meet, I'm gonna see your eyes.
The windows to the soul.
I had a roommate that he had this really hideous picture on all of his online profiles, and the caption was, "I use this to weed out the shallow," and people are like, why would you put that picture up there? And I'm like, my philosophy is what you see is what you get, and I'm not a glamorous guy. I don't have glamour shots taken, and there's some pictures that I prefer over others. But you know what? I am what I am. Thank you, Popeye.
Well, one thing I like on Scruff is you can have these private albums, and I pay for my Scruff, so I can have a bunch of photos up there. So what I like is that when I show someone my pictures, they have a variety of headshots, full-length shots, etc. And so they get to see like a bunch of different things. Well, I just feel like it's the best way to paint someone a picture, because I've definitely it's definitely happened to me before where when we were talking earlier about weight loss, like when I was much bigger, I would sometimes have a really great picture or really one or two flattering pictures, and I meet the person in public, and they think that I misrepresented myself. So I like that now we have this option to have a lot more pictures, or can more easily send a lot of pictures. You know what I mean? So unlike the old website days, Bear 411 and all that, where
they've expanded also. Actually.
Well, that's true. They actually have. You're right.
Well, I will say this about being deceitful and honest in your profile, that with Bill, every time we have an argument, I'm like, when we break up, you better give me the password to all your online profiles so I can write the truth, so the next guy doesn't have to find out the hard way. There's your crazy Italian and all the bullshit. He's like, oh, yeah, you're going to rewrite my profile. I'll rewrite your profile. I'm like, fine.
You guys are so funny. Oh, my God, they have these drag-out fights. They're hysterical.
And we laugh.
That's love.
And the neighbors are like, they're crazy.
That's love.
That's love. Never in my white Anglo-Saxon Protestant upbringing did I ever think that a head slap would be an adequate expression of love. Shut up! You're fine. I'll complain about something, and he'll be like, "Yeah, you're fine." Which, real quick segue, has anybody seen that show Felt on Logo? They have recordings of real couples in couples therapy. And then they have these
in the puppets.
felt puppets,
Yes,
right?
yes, I have seen
And
that.
our favorite, we almost died laughing because I'm all white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Bill's from Italian immigrant family. And this one Mexican guy goes, white people and their feelings. And Bill's like, that's how I feel about you. And you're like, you have feelings, baby. Shut up. Like, how does that make me feel? I don't care.
It's true. It's true.
So, well,
All right. Well, we got to do back scratches.
We do. And so I'm going to back scratch Bill for putting up with white people's feelings. And Scarlett, actually, I'll give her a little tail scratch. We just found out she has a mast cell tumor on her elbow. And we don't know if we're going to pursue the surgery or not, or if we're just going to use palliative treatment and make her comfortable. But she's a pit bull boxer lab mix. It's sort of a trifecta of crappy DNA when it comes to, being a dog and maybe getting cancer. So, she don't care. The doctor's telling me this shit, and my ears are tearing up, and she's wagging her tail looking for a treat. So
it's cancer?
Yeah, it's a form of cancer. So
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we definitely want updates on that.
Yeah, there's big back scratch to Miss Scarlett.
Yes.
And big back scratch in the sky to Kenny. He's quite a character.
For the listeners, he's going to be part of my back scratches. But for the listeners that had me mention Kenny all the time that have listened for a while, Kenny passed away. So this weekend is his life celebration. I'm going to go down to Long Beach for that.
So what other back scratches you got there, Veets?
Well, I definitely want to back scratch my buddy Todd, who's a new listener who works for a major airline. I don't think I should say it, but he's been getting us good rates for last-minute flights down when he was sick. So I got to see Kenny right before he passed. It was very cool. I'm so glad I went down. And back scratch Tarek and my parents for putting up with me for going down there and last minute and airport pickups and all sorts of things. And to my buddy Kenny, you were a pain in the ass, but I loved you, and I'm glad you're not in pain anymore.
And
Cancer sucks.
And I have dibs on the Gradolfo family Thanksgiving, Kenny. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's going to miss him
Yeah.
at Thanksgiving and Christmas, big time.
No, I could never take Kenny's place. Alrighty. And our guest, Dave, do you have any back scratches?
Sure. I guess while I'm thinking of them, I should back scratch Billy and Mike at Diacati and Sarah and Manuel at Eating Free for all of the contributions they've given me to helping me create my new self. I should give back scratches to all my friends for their support. And while I'm thinking about some comedy, to my creative partner of a decade now, Colin Benoit. I hope we get back to the stage. And, of course, back scratches to you guys for having me. It's been a lot of fun. You guys are a blast to hang out with.
Thanks.
Both of us.
Before we go,
all 7 of you, even though 5 of you aren't saying anything.
I just got a text from Wolfie. He was delayed coming back from Toronto, Canada. That's why he wasn't able to make it tonight.
What's that about?
What's that about?
Canadian, eh?
Okay.
Alrighty.
Hey.
Well, we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Later on, guys.
Visit us at bearelement.com.